As teachers, it is really important that we ensure we are using evidence based practices when providing instruction and using strategies. So, the Kansas based strategy has research, but unfortunately, in order to be considered evidence based in a lot of locations, it has to be a large scale study. A lot of the studies that have been completed with Kansas strategies are smaller studies, so they prove the evidence. And I can tell you that based on my instructional opportunities that I've had, the evidence is incredibly strong for the use. But I want to make sure that you are able to defend this method. If you like this method and you want to use it in your classroom, or you want to use it when you are instructing a student for reading strategies, writing strategies, whatever, I wanted to prepare you to be able to, in a sense, defend the strategy usage of Kansas writing. So, one of the ways that I train teachers to use the defense of it being an evidence based strategy is to look at the 2017 Hattie work. So, in 2017, Hattie and colleagues looked at multiple strategies and did a meta analysis of what strategies are effective in the classroom. They used an effect size. And so they looked at all of these components of teaching and all of these evidence based strategies, and they wanted to assign that effect size. So, what you'll notice in that visual that I have here is that an effect size of zero point 0.4 or higher is actually considered incredibly strong. So, what I want to do is talk a little bit about how Kansas writing meets many of these strategy components and the evidence behind them based on the Hattie 2017 research. So, the biggest thing that we'll see is that when we talk about the learning strategies, which is what the Kansas strategies are, we have a lot of supports. You will notice that transfer strategies are used incredibly often within the Kansas writing strategy instructional material. That is a 0.86 effect size. So you are using transfer and generalizable strategies. I can tell you that I have seen this in action many, many times. I had a student, and you'll notice in the lecture part that basically he was on the spectrum. And because this strategy is so black and white and it provides a step by step explicit instruction material, that this student was able to stand up and actually teach the process to his peers within 1 or 2 sessions. So it is a generalizable strategy. It's something that we can build. And when we're thinking of a learning strategy, it should be a cognitive and metacognitive strategy. Then we look at scaffolding. Scaffolding is a 0.82 effect size. And what you'll notice is that throughout the Kansas strategies, you are scaffolding the process. You are building to this. You are not coming up with this instructional method all at once. You are building to that. And so you are scaffolding this method by pieces. And so that has a 0.82 effect size, which is why the Kansas writing is so effective. Deliberate practice has a 0.79 effect size, and mnemonics have a 0.76. We use mnemonics throughout the deliberate practice. One of the things that when I train in the Kansas writing for teachers, I tell them this is going to get really annoying to you to have to do these mnemonics over and over. And as teachers, yes, we remember that, but it is really important that we focus on that deliberate practice with those mnemonics because it has such a strong effect size. And that is why our students pick up on this strategy and are able to use it later. It also has feedback throughout. It is a direct instruction method just in its nature, and it goes for mastery learning. We don't have you stop until that student has reached mastery learning. And finally, it's an explicit method, as I said, which is why it leads to that generalizable element. The thing that we have to realize is that it is an instructional learning cycle. That is what all learning strategies that Hattie examined really are a part of. And so if you had to explain to someone, say your principal came in and said, okay, I don't have a problem with you using this, but please define the instructional strategies for me and the evidence behind that. You would simply say, this is an instructional learning cycle that integrates these specific learning strategies in place. And we have to remember that this is really important. This type of learning style is incredibly important and has a significant impact on students who need that step by step explicit instruction material. That may not be for all students, because what we find, especially in the math research as well, is that explicit teaching instructions of the mathematical steps and equations are incredibly beneficial for students who maybe have a disability, but maybe they are not as impactful as for students who don't have a disability. That being said, I will tell you that the individual who trained me found that there was a significant effect on a group of ELL students that she worked with. And in Texas, she is actually at a service unit in Texas. And she told me that they actually use it as a primary method for students with ELL, and they'll use it as a whole class method so that those students are actually getting that integrative language as well. So do remember that when you're defending this as an evidence-based strategy, it's not the strategy always per se. It might be actually the concepts and the embedded in the instructional learning cycle that actually are what you're using to defend that. And so if you have further questions about this, as you can tell, I love to talk about how to identify something as evidence-based or non-evidence-based. Just let me know, and we can have a meeting or we can talk about this. But I hope what you'll find is that you're going to see all of those learning strategy components are incredibly helpful. I've tried to give you a few examples of why they've been helpful. And so if you have questions, like I said, please let me know. But I wanted to just provide that to you. I will also be providing your SIM brochure right under this particular video. Thanks.